when people start implementing collaborative parenting, there's this massive shift in the home where stressors and power struggles decrease immediately because you didn't set yourself up for them. You actually set yourself up for open communication, and parents report that they feel so confident in their relationship with their children and the strategies that they're choosing, because the strategies are not chosen based on it worked for your neighbor's kid. They're chosen based on your child.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's been through and still going through the trenches of motherhood myself, I get it. Life gets busy and sometimes your relationship takes a back seat. But guess what? You can feel like a couple while raising kids, and I'm here to help. Join me each week here as we dive into the messy but fulfilling world of marriage and motherhood. From navigating conflict to reigniting that spark, we're going to chat about it all. So, if you're juggling mom life with wife life, this podcast is for you. And hey, if you love what you hear, I'd be so grateful if you could rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Here's this week's episode. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I am thrilled to be here today because we have a guest here talking about how to elevate our parenting styles so that we can raise the next generation to be ready for the world, to equip them with the skills, with the thought process to actually be out there and make decisions that are really meant for them to make great decisions for their life, to be critical thinkers. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? We really want to raise the next generation to be those that can really live on their own, be good to others, be good to themselves, and not just follow the leader, right? But lead themselves. And so here we have Cara Tyrrell. She's a master's in education based in Vermont. She's an early childhood educator, collaborative parenting coach, and the founder of Core for Parenting. She is the passionate mastermind behind the collaborative parenting methodology, a birth to 5 soul and science-based framework that empowers parents to maximize their child's early learning while raising fantastic human beings who succeed in school and life. Through keynotes, teacher training, and her podcast, Transforming the Toddler Years, which I highly recommend, she's teaching the 5 executive functioning skills kids need to navigate our ever-changing world. Now, if you do not have neurodivergent kids, you may not even know what executive functioning skills are. I know I didn't until I realized that my oldest has ADHD. So, in unraveling that world, I have come to learn where my executive functioning skills lie and where I can further develop that. So this is relevant to all types of people, and I'm so excited to have you here, Cara. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I am thrilled to join you for this conversation, and wherever it leads, I know the value is just going to hit parents where they need to hear it so that they can take some new actions inside their home.
Yes. We're all about the growth here. All right, so before we dive right into this, can you share with us how old your kids are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I teach people how to write parenting mission statements to put beautiful adults out into the world. And we talk about it when their kids are toddlers. And mine are now 18 and 20. So they are doing exactly what you said in that beautiful introduction. And they are critically thinking their way out into the world. My 18-year-old is moving to Japan. My 20-year-old just moved to Tennessee. And I cannot wait to see the beautiful impact they make in this world.
There has to be something said about feeling confident about sending your kids off to explore the world. I feel like as a parent, we naturally worry, but knowing that you've done your job, knowing that you feel like, okay, they have it down, must feel so good.
It's unbelievable. In fact, everyone's asking me, how are you? Are you okay? And, of course there's emotion. Of course there's worry. That's the natural human experience of motherhood. What are they going to bump up against and how will they handle it? But I do know I did my job. I know that they are critical thinkers. And I also know that when you walk out into the world on your own for the first time, you're supposed to struggle a little bit. And you're supposed to work through the struggle. And you're supposed to feel that achievement and success of, I did this all by myself on the other side of it. And that is what I teach from the time that we have a 1-year-old in front of us until the time we have an 18-year-old in front of us.
I love that because so often it's challenging for us to see our kids struggle through something. We just want to jump in there and help them right away, but we are then taking away that process, that opportunity for them to really find themselves in that journey. And I love that you're speaking to that and that you have actually like done what you say you're say to do and teach your clients. So I'm really excited to explore your method here. But before we do that, share with us what led you to become an early child educator and collaborative parenting coach.
Absolutely. So, what I thought I wanted to do, what I knew I wanted to do with my life, I called it be a mom. And I knew that was just going to be my passion in life when I was old enough to do so and had my person. But what I didn't realize that I was actually saying is that I wanted to do something that directly and positively impacted young children and made their lives different from the earliest years and infused in them this lifetime love of learning and this deep knowledge of who they were. And so that led me down the road of early childhood education. And I spent a decade in preschool and kindergarten classrooms, and it was a beautiful place to be until I realized I wasn't making the impact or the difference I wanted to make one classroom, one handful of kids at a time. And so I took a step back and I left the classroom and I designed the Core 4 parenting methodology, tested it by going back to my roots. And while I had tween and teen girls at home, I took a full-time nanny job. So I had infants and toddlers, tweens and teens all at the same time. And I found I was talking to them the same way. I was asking them to solve problems similarly. Granted, one was about a sippy cup and one was about how late you could stay out to the junior high school dance, but it was there and it was the same. And I thought, aha, I have found my methodology that has always come so innately to me, but now I can put it together into a package, into a bow. I can wrap it up for people and I can teach other parents how to do it. So that's what I did when COVID hit and 2020 became the parenting overwhelm that it did. I knew that the world needed some support.
I love that so much. So funny that your experience just made me think of like where I'm at today, right? Like I have a 13-and-a-half-year-old stepson. I've got an almost 7-year-old son and I have a 3-year-old daughter. So like minus the nannying, that's like basically my life right now. So I'm excited to dive into this. So what exactly is collaborative parenting?
Yeah. So if you think about collaborating with another person, you usually think about it adult to adult. As business partners in the solopreneur world, we collaborate. We're doing it right now. On a team, at a corporate gig, you collaborate with your team members. So collaborative parenting is conscious parenting, being truly aware of who you are and who you want to raise and that you want to be in the moment and use very intentional language. You know, all of the beautiful conscious parenting work that you have seen taught and described, and it's next level. It's then teaching your child how to also be in that state of mindfulness and know who they are and what their natural strengths are and what their natural struggles are. And then working as a team and giving your children opportunity to tackle the problem solving first. And you're there to support. And it's this beautiful give and take. And within it, you are organically teaching those executive functioning skills that you alluded to.
Oh, I love that so much. This is definitely the approach that we attempt to take. Don't know how successful it is, but we do our best to do this is to understand ourselves, which is the conscious parenting side, right? Let informing ourselves of like, hey, what's going on with us, choosing intentionally how to approach a child, but also modeling and coaching the child on like, hey, okay, what's going on for you? What do you think is the best way to get through this? What do you think the consequence should be for this type of behavior, so that they could start to think more towards the future and be more mindful about how their actions make an impact on other people and other situations, right? So I love this. It is not easy, by the way, but it does get easier the more you practice it, as with everything, right? So, what have you seen from using this methodology? What have you noticed both in your family, your kids, and from clients?
What happens when people start implementing collaborative parenting is all of a sudden there's this massive shift in the climate, I like to say, of the home, where those stressors and the projections that both parents have on kids' expectations and vice versa are so minimized that the power struggles decrease immediately because you didn't set yourself up for them. You actually did the opposite and you set yourself up for an open communication situation that is based in what I call the core four connectors, where we believe what the other person is telling us, that we trust what they're saying, that we are going to respect mutually, even if we don't see the problem that way, or we don't think that's the right answer. And yes, I'm talking about honoring, respecting, and trusting toddlers. And when you do that, all of a sudden, that climate change happens inside your home and the solutions show themselves, just like in mindfulness, right? When we get quiet and calm and we take a minute and we say, oh, now I see this differently and I understand how I can fix this immediately. This is what happens. And then confidence. Parents just report that they feel so confident in their relationship with their children and the strategies that they're choosing, because the strategies are not chosen based on it worked for your neighbor's kid. They're chosen based on who is your child and why do they align with this strategy and why does it feel good to them to then be part of the process.
I love this. I always love when the individual aspect is at the core of it, because you cannot parent each child the same. All of us have different needs, and what is the biggest need that we have? It's to feel seen and heard. Things that a lot of us in our generation didn't experience. So it's challenging to then go and do it for other people when we have no example to follow. So I love that you're doing the work that you're doing right now, because a lot of people out there are needing to know how to do that and also do that for themselves, right? Like do that healing work that they need to repair the stuff that they didn't get growing up. I know like that's definitely a lot of the work that I do, especially because parenting can be so triggering, right? Like, oh, I was hit when I was younger, but I don't do that to my kids, but it's like, oh, I really feel like the understanding of like why my parents did this, but like I need to choose a different, healthier path because I have to think about the future. Okay, what type of relationship do I want with my kids? Is doing that going to help me get there? My answer is no. So I need to like put in that energetic, mental, emotional effort to figure out what my options are. And it is exhausting sometimes. Let me tell you.
It's exhausting, but what you just did is a perfect demonstration of the conscious piece, right? That little self-talk conversation that you had in your head, and then the clarity piece. Okay, Why am I choosing not to? What is my long-term goal here? And although both of those can be challenging to get to in and of themselves, and that's why I never throw strategies at people straight out of the gate. They say, well, can you help me fix this? I say, I can. But we have to do a bunch of things that are about the soul of who you are and who your family is before I can give you a strategy that will work. Because you just nailed it. You know what you want. You know what you don't want. You know which parts of the cycle you want to break and replace. You know you want to be the architect of your child's childhood. You just don't always know how. And that is the tricky part for me about this conscious parenting movement. I adore it. And I am so grateful. I feel so, so grateful to live in a generation where this shift is happening. But I feel like it's so much about the what do I want and not so much about the how do I get there. And so that's why I designed my methodology, because I can really bring you there.
Yeah, and also the why, because the why is what anchors us. It helps us stay committed when it feels really freaking hard to do it, right?
Yes. That why. Oh my goodness, that is the core of everything in our lives, not just parenting. But yeah, I took that model and said, we have to prioritize the why. So I asked people to come up with their parenting GPS, that long vision, that North Star that you're talking about that really grounds you in after the 4 meltdown day by 9 a.m. And you're like, how am I going to get through the rest of it? And then we actually write a personalized parenting mission statement. I take this CEO level. You get to be the CEO of your parenting journey and design exactly what your vision is. And I often, especially with clients who I have on Voxer, right, they'll come to me with a specific question. I had one today. They said, oh, we can't decide if we should go to this preschool or that preschool. And I said, have you looked back at your parenting mission statement? Which one reflects what you want for your child more? Because the answer is always there. It's so easy to get caught up in the things that the world throws at us, all the details and the organizational pieces and the oh, they're 3 now, they must be able to do this. Well, if that's not your goal, then you get to do something different. So always having that printed, framed on the wall, I highly recommend.
I could not agree more. I think once we know what it is that we're working towards, all of everything else, every single decision just becomes, is this aligned or is it not? That's it. It simplifies life so, so much more. And you can like have this work for your marriage, your life as a parent, your work life, how you take care of yourself, what you choose to involve yourself in, who you choose to surround yourself with. It's all comes down to, is this aligned or is this not? And if you're not familiar with what I mean by align, I just mean, is this helping you get closer to what it is that you want? Does this speak true to you as an authentic person, as someone with individual needs? Does this serve you? Because we are now living in this society where we are kind of coming away from this generation where it's like we have to keep up with the Jones, right? It's like, okay, they have this, we got to get that. Oh, they go to this school, we got to go there. We are very much trying to break free from those shackles, I'll say, and really think about, okay, well, what's best for my family? It doesn't have to be the same as yours, but I still respect that that's what you choose to do for your family. We all need to do what's best for us. And this mission statement that Cara is talking about is similar to my concept of family culture. What is it that you are establishing for your individual family unit? You and your husband get to come together and talk about that, even if it looks vastly different than what you grew up with. Like, that's the beauty of it. You get to start off with a blank slate, but knowing, your conditioning and things that you have to maybe unlearn to get there. But those things are not holding you back. You get to dream and you get to create this beautiful statement, this beautiful culture that you're working towards together. And when you clearly communicate that with your spouse and you create it together, it makes trust between you two as partners so much easier. And it makes things go so much more smoother in the home.
Absolutely. I have a really great example that kind of wraps
Yeah.
everything so far that we've talked about. So, as you said, every child is different. And so our girls are 2 years apart, and one's neurodivergent and one is neurotypical. This is a similar experience that you're having. And so one of them got to the end of sixth grade. I live in rural Vermont where we have two schools. You go K to 6, and then you go 7 to 12. Like, that's it. One of them got to the end of sixth grade, made the transition to the junior high school or the high school over there, no problem, and was totally able to do it. The public school program was working. Did she love it? I don't know, but it was working. The other one, my husband came to me and he said, this isn't going to work for her. She's going to go to seventh grade. It's going to be an epic disaster.
Mm.
And I said, I know. And he's like, well, what are we going to do about it? And I said, nothing yet. And he said, why? We know the bottom's going to fall out. And I said, and I remember very clearly having to say it multiple times because he was just like, I don't get this. I'm a dude. I fix things. Like, let's fix the problem before it's a problem. And I said, no, because she's neurodivergent and because she has auditory processing disorder, because this will continue to be her challenge for the rest of her life, we need to let her have the challenge and come to us and communicate this isn't working, whatever that sounds like. Now, she was 13, right? So what it sounded like was coming home in tears, overwhelmed, and not able to communicate why it was so much harder at that school than it was at her previous school for 3 weeks in a row. At that point, I pulled the plug, but not after very intense, open conversations with her saying, do you know why this is so hard for you? What are the things that are challenging for you during the day that are causing you to come home and shed these tears? What do you think the next step should be to find a school that is going to work for you? We collaborated with her in every single step, found the perfect school. And this is my shy, quiet, Velcro child, afraid of the world because she didn't understand how to process what she was hearing kid, who's now 18 and moving to Japan for 1.5 years to au pair for a family and learn a new language because we found the right program, but included her in that problem solving every step of the way, empowering her to take ownership of her learning and advocate for herself with her new teachers when she didn't understand what they were trying to tell her.
I love that so much. And in hearing that story, it makes me think of all of the questions that come up in our minds that run at like 10 seconds, in 10 seconds, it's all downloaded, right? And we're like, okay, we have the perfect path for you. And we often don't walk them through that process. So it kind of seems like we're just making a decision out of thin air. And at that age, they kind of think we don't really know much anymore, right? Like that transition of like the young kids are like, oh my gosh, you know every single thing. You're like Google. To like the teenage years are like, you don't know anything. You're so old and outdated and whatever. To like, the college years where you're like, oh gosh, you really are wise, right? So it's like so funny because we're in that stage where we have our 13-year-old. He's getting to that phase where like, you guys are so weird. You don't know anything, but it's in that process of slowing down and being aware of what's going on in our minds and actually communicating it so that he can then learn, oh, these are the things that we need to open our eyes to and ask ourselves and notice around us, like the friends you hang out with, what their actions mean, like what you're okay with, what's not okay with you. And that is so opposite of what I experienced growing up. It was very much do as you're told. You are to be seen but not heard, be
Mm.
obedient, be a people pleaser, all of the things. And to move away from that to what we're trying to do, which sounds like is very aligned with your collaborative parenting style. It's like, this is hard.
It is hard. And I'm of a similar generation. I remember actually hearing the words, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
And understanding in my pre-adolescent space that that was a that statement was full of hypocrisy. But not understanding that I had a choice, because I guess I didn't feel like I did. Um, and let me just couch that by saying that my parents are the most loving, kind, compassionate people on the planet. I'm an only child. They wanted everything for me better than they had for them, right? They got that parenting memo, but the shift just hadn't happened yet. And so what I tell parents now is if that is an old childhood story that you brought with you, change it to this. Do as I do, and I'll learn to do better.
Mm, I love that. It changes it to a modeling approach.
And it
Yeah.
gives them permission. I interviewed an amazing couple once, and they said to me, we do this thing called tough truths in our household, and we do it
Mm.
at our family meeting every week. And the kids are allowed to call us out on things we said or did that we don't allow for them. And I was just blown away. And I said, yes. This is what we want. We want kids to know they have a voice in their home. Sure, there's rules, routines, there's regulations that you have to follow because you're a family member and you respect each other, but you are allowed to speak up.
I love that. And part of me is like, whoa, I could never do that growing up. Like that would just warrant some kind of consequence I didn't want. Right. But I love that because I actually have an HR background. And so the concept of like a 360 review, that's kind of similar, right? Because we're constantly offering our kids feedback, but how often are we giving them the platform to offer us feedback to help improve our individualized parenting approach for them, to really personalize it to them so that they can thrive the best that they can? Because it's not our job to make all the decisions for them. Sure, we're here to guide them, set boundaries, teach them how to be respectful, so on and so forth. But this is their path. And I think so much of the old style of parenting is about controlling. And so that's definitely something I'm like peeling back the layers of like unlearning and stopping. And it's been very eye-opening, but also exhausting.
Well, because it's a personal development journey that
Yeah,
you're on.
definitely.
I call it parenting personal development, and it's hard work, right? It's this internal work, and we get to pick the pieces of ourselves that we think are the most engaging and do the most good and have the best relationship qualities and hold on to those. And then we have to let go of those other pieces that are not serving us or others. And it's so hard. And that is just the one piece. That's not
Yeah.
even when you're actively having a conversation with kids. And really, this is what it all boils down to, right? Conversating. Everything we
Hmm.
do with our children primarily comes through our words. There's a lot of body language. We took those from childhood too. I certainly make some faces my mom makes, right? So there's a lot of physiological pieces, but most of it is the words we choose, the tone we use, and the opportunities we give them. I tell my kids all the time, thank you for trusting me to have this conversation with you.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, because it is their choice to share with you or to even engage in the conversation. And that has become even more apparent now that, our oldest son is that age where he's starting to lean on his social network a lot more than his parents. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this. I was not prepared for this shift, right? But it is a natural, normal, healthy part of the journey of him becoming his own person. And all we can do is really just be there and let him know that we're here for him. But can you share more about what is the collaborative parenting methodology like exactly? What are the steps that you walk your clients through to help them have a more engaging, open, trusting, respectful relationship with their kids?
So it's so hard to put into exactly words because it's this evolution, right? It's this transformation that happens inside you. And then your children recognize that you have made this transformation and they meet you there. And then you start using the intentional language that I teach and the science based strategies from my education background to help them navigate problem solving. Even though you may still, especially since we're talking about littles, usually in my world, you may still be the one who is driving that outcome. So in my Transforming the Toddler Years course, there's 6 focuses. And first we deal with mindset, then we learn perspective, and then I take people into a peek inside their child's brain development, because this is where we tend to get stuck. The conscious parenting model is all about the mindset and the perspective. But our little people between birth and 5, 85% of their foundational brain growth, the size of their brain, is done growing by 5 years old. So knowing that, and knowing that the majority of those years, they're not very expressive. If your child doesn't talk like a lot of COVID babies and pandemic kids who got a lot of delays because of their experience during shutdown, if you have a child who is 3 and still not efficiently talking, there's 3 out of 5 years that you have not seen expressively what's happening inside their brain development. So I make a point of taking parents inside that space and showing them what's going on so that they now have that knowledge and they can meet their child there. Then I teach the intentional language that we're going to use, and my cues and sentence starters are designed so that you're delivering it, but it triggers something in their brain that causes them to have to think through those executive functioning skills. They have to engage critical thinking in order to answer you or in order to do the thing that you're asking them to do. Then we go into all the strategies, and then the magic happens because I wrap the course by teaching parents how to stack their strategies by picking the ones that work for their child's true nature. And it is effortless. And they find that the tantrums decrease just organically. And then when their child is struggling with something or struggling to listen or making a choice they know is not acceptable in the home, they have the tools that they need to lovingly redirect. And in the meantime, their child is feeling really empowered, like they are part of that solution too.
I love that. I actually have a very recent example of how this works. So, my second son has sensory processing
Mm-hmm.
disorder, and we just recently discovered this. We've always just known that he's a little different, a little more challenging to parent. And we're like, what is going on? Are you just that way? Are you just a grumpy old man? But upon coming across occupational therapy and working with the pediatric one, we have learned so much about what's going on for him and how he's just constantly overwhelmed by like external stimulus. And so once we understood more, like you said, the science part of what's happening, we were able to be more compassionate and meet him where he's at rather than comparing him to someone who's equivalent to his age and be like, why aren't you more like this? Which sets everyone up for disappointment and frustration and sometimes anger, right? And so he just had oral surgery yesterday, actually, and
Oh,
we were expecting like horrible experience, right? We were expecting him to not want to get out of bed, to thrash around. He's like almost 7, so he's like, strong now. And for him to not get in the car, to not get out of the car, to fight the anesthesia when he's like in the chair. But you know what he did instead? He just verbalized how he felt. He said, I'm scared. And we're like, it makes sense that you're scared. We would be scared too. I get it. And I've been there. And I am not scared for you. I know you're going to be okay. And just from saying that repeatedly, anytime he mentioned he was scared and giving him choice, what are you going to bring? What are you going to wear? Like, what do you want to do afterwards? And talking about, like, how much better he'll feel afterwards. He went in there. He just expressed that he didn't like it. Okay, that's fine. Like, we understand you don't like it. I wouldn't like it either. And he went in, he was fine, came out, done. We're just like, are you the same child? Like, what is happening here? So there's just so much magic to individualizing how you parent kids, because what we have had to do for him, we did not have to do for the other kids at all.
he felt safe. Even though he
Yes,
felt uncomfortable, he felt safe inside his family
exactly.
unit, knowing that you had his back, whatever that was going to mean. If it turned into a disaster, you'd be there for him and show up just like you would if it didn't. Well done, Mama and Daddy.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing.
We were just like
Amazing.
high five, like to me and my husband. We was like, I can't believe that just happened. That was so easy, and the fact that he was able to verbalize how he felt. That in itself is a win, because that's not something he used to be able to do. He used to become nonverbal and grunt and just shut
Mm.
down. And we would never understand, like, what is happening here? I don't even know what you're upset about, or like why this is such a big deal to you. But because we have stepped away from that type of approach and really met him where he's at, give him the support that he needs, and walk him through the executive functioning skills that he has delayed, it's become like, it brought us to this moment where he's like, I'm scared, I'm worried. I'm like, holy cow, did you just say that?
And it's
It's amazing.
beautiful. This is what I try to get people to wrap their heads around, because honestly, the society at large paints a really terrifying picture of parenthood. Watch out for those
Mhm.
terrible twos. Oh, those teenager threes. And don't even talk to me about the teenager years, right? So you're pregnant and you're hearing how hard it's going to be. And it doesn't have to be like that. You get to design this from the day that they enter the world, and it starts in here in your soul. And then you do need some knowledge to go along with your deep desires, and you need a little bit of training, right? You need some up leveling with how to deliver the message, and then you just get to deeply connect with your child, which you already know how to do.
I love that. I love that. And I wish this for everyone. For everyone. Like, if you're a parent and you're like, how do they do this? Reach out to Cara. Okay. But before we um, end this conversation, I do want to bring up executive functioning skills. Can you
Mhm.
share with the listeners what they are? I think you mentioned there's 5 of them, right? And if you don't have
Yes.
a neurodivergent child, you might be like, why do they keep saying this and why is it irrelevant? Can you share with us what they are?
Sure. So, executive functioning skills, you use them every single day. They're how your brain interacts with your body and you present to the world, and they're the skills that allow you to be interpersonal, to have a conversation, a give and a take. They're the skills that allow you to regulate yourself. So there's a ton of executive functioning skills. But what I've done, because my passion right now is advocating for pandemic parents and the COVID generation that they're raising, is I picked the 5 that those kids really need to practice the most. And you will hear immediately, oh my gosh, so do I. Wait, I'm 47 and I still work on that every single day, because that's just the truth, right? I talk about tinies, but this is just a human experience. So the first skill that we have to practice is delayed gratification. In toddler terms, learning to wait. I struggle with it still. Right? Learning to wait, whether it be in the moment, wait for an answer, order the package, it takes longer than you think to get here. Waiting is something that we need to be able to sit inside and be okay with, because what it does is it unlocks this opportunity for us to believe that the right timing for everything will show up. It takes away our need to micromanage, over control, and organize. And so that is really important, because when kids lose control, they try to take control. So waiting is important. Emotional regulation is incredibly important. That's why I was so excited to hear you say that your child was not only able to label the emotions, but express the emotion. The ability to calm ourselves, to self-soothe. That's why when kids are little, we get them a self-soothing object so that they can personify. But then we really want to teach them that they have the ability to calm their own bodies when they're triggered. It is also really important to raise a flexible thinker. The world is not black and white. It's not cookie cutter. The world does not reflect what they see in their head and want to be true. So they have to be able to think flexibly and pivot, as we would say, if something is not going according to plan. They also need to master their own mini sense of time management. And this is a big one. The ability to think about time, which is such an abstract concept to begin with, and then realize that you're going to chunk it up into sections. Choose what you're going to do first, second, and third, and attach it to the outcome that you're trying to get to is really an important skill. It's also, by the way, a pre-reading and a pre-math skill. So you're giving your kids a triple win there. And then the last one that I teach, and a lot of people say to me, this is a skill, is having a true, deep sense of who you are. Understanding your sense of self. I believe that knowing who I am, and that I am a leader and I'm an extrovert and I like to communicate to solve problems, helps me navigate social settings better. If I know that the person across from me isn't like that, I tone myself back. If I know that the person across from me is right there in the ring with me, I bring all of me out. But teaching our kids who they are is very important. And this means that you're putting words to it, that you are being a mirror for them. Wow, I notice that when we go out in public, your body is always touching my body. It makes me think that being around a lot of people makes you feel uncomfortable. Is that true? Okay, and now I know that about you, and now you know that about you. So we bring that to the classroom. You're starting a new year. You're starting kindergarten. I know that being around a lot of people can be hard for you. Your job is to make sure that you get to know your teacher. You will eventually get to know the kids in your class. Today, let's just practice saying hello, how are you, to your teacher. Let's just build one relationship today, right? Really letting them know that you get what's hard for them, but you're there to scaffold the learning process.
I love that so much. I never even thought of that single aspect because actually all of them are extroverts, so I never had to deal with that. But I love that so much because it really brings the overwhelming nature and worries and anxiety that can come um, to a child, especially with starting elementary school, and help them focus on one single win. This is your goal. As long as you meet that, it's a win. Anything else is a bonus. And we can apply that to ourselves as well, right? Like I do that for myself. Normally, I list out 3 things that I want to get done. Anything else is bonus. But if I do those 3 things, which are very intentionally chosen, I feel like my day is a success.
Yeah. And it works for the other way too, right? If you have a child who is a constant interrupter, who always has something to say, who doesn't realize when it's not their turn to talk and isn't getting those social cues right, then you're going to counsel them differently and say, your voice, you always have a voice. You always have something to say. And I love hearing what you have to say. But did you know that in kindergarten, sometimes it's the teacher's turn to talk, and sometimes it's your turn. So you need to pay attention and listen. See if you can listen for when you know it's her turn and then take yours, right? So we can either pull them back from one of their natural tendencies, which is really large, or we can lift them up from one of their natural tendencies, which is a little underdeveloped.
Oh my gosh, yes. We still have to do with this for our teen when he's like trying to, you know, share what his thoughts are, which we want to hear, obviously. But if my husband and I are talking or someone's talking to someone else and he wants to cut in, we just say, "What do you hear?" He goes, "Oh, sorry." So like, okay, let's bring that back. Let's use what we're given and be able to teach yourself like, is this the right time to like come in? Because we do want to hear what you have to say, but you got to listen for what's going on so that you don't appear rude. Because I know you're not trying to be rude, but it comes off that way when you do that.
And you know what this turns into? And this brings us all full circle. It becomes a self actualized adult experience. So we have a new director in a co working space that I work in. And the very first thing that he said to the team was, "My wife and my daughter tell me that I can come off without a bunch of empathy or compassion a lot of the time. So if that's happening and you're feeling that way from me, I want you to tell me so that I can do things differently." And I was
Ooh, I
just
like
like,
that.
yes, yes. If we start this when they're young, that's who they're going to grow up to be. I know who I am. And I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I know what my struggles are, but here's what I know I'm great at. So please help me be in this setting and meet all of what's happening here.
I love that so much. And the humility that comes behind that too is
Yeah,
remarkable.
it
Because we all
is.
have tendencies to do things that
Yeah,
aren't so great.
my daughter's letter of recommendation that she got she started working at 14 and she's been with this place 4 years. So a lot of history there to put into a 1-letter recommendation. And my favorite sentence was, "Caroline is confident yet humble."
Mm, that's a good combination.
Hmm. We worked hard at it. The confident part.
Yeah.
The humble's
Yeah.
always been there.
That's good. That's good. I love that so much. Okay, so we dove into a lot of stuff here, so much good stuff. I'm sure we could keep talking about this forever because this work is really needed. And I really appreciate you for doing the work that you're doing, for dedicating your life towards helping moms, parents improve their style, but also feel really good about it and feeling really proud of what they're doing and the generation that they're raising next. So, how can people reach you? How can they connect with you? If they're listening to this and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love her. I love what she's about, and I need to learn about all this collaborative parenting stuff."
So, if you are ready to learn so much more about this, I would love if you come to my free workshop. It's called Transforming Your Triggers, and I teach you my 6-step system for moving from knee-jerk reactions to intentional responses. And that's an excellent gateway to what I do. You'll learn the 4 C's of collaborative parenting in there. And you can also tune into the podcast. Absolutely. It is a resource that has so many topics that you're going to find something that you're dealing with in the moment, and you'll be able to walk away saying, oh, I have a new level of awareness, or I have a new strategy to try.
Oh, I love that so much. And I'll drop the link in the show notes if you're interested in joining. I don't know why you wouldn't want to join. It sounds incredible. So, how can people work with you?
So I work with people in a number of ways. My Transforming the Toddler Years course is a live group program where we learn and grow together. I have a graduate program for people who have graduated, but they want to continue to work together in a one-on-one capacity. And now that they know the methodology, it's so much easier for them to just bring me their struggles. And then we work backwards. And I say, remember when we did this? And what about your mission statement? And then I also am available for true one-on-one coaching. If you're not into the group setting and you really just want to make one transformation, we can put together a package and help you reach that goal.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So if you have loved what Cara shared during this episode, please go reach out to her, go attend that workshop, or go work with her one-on-one. Go follow her. She is full of knowledge, and she really is an amazing person to learn from. Like, I absolutely love your podcast. So if even if you just start there, you cannot lose at all. So before we part ways, I love to ask my guests a question so that listeners can get to know you a little bit better. What is a food that you can eat every day and never get sick of?
Yeah. So I remember Carrie Underwood said this on national television, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am you, except I can't sing like you. Cheese. I
Jeez.
love cheese. And right now, with fresh produce coming out of the greenhouse, a beautiful caprese salad with some fresh mozzarella on there every day for lunch.
Nice. I love it. Isn't Vermont like big on cheese too? Or am I
Hmm.
not thinking of this? Okay.
You are. Yes, Vermont Cabot cheddar. That's us.
Okay. I have yet to visit Vermont. I really want to go there just to see the leaves change colors. I've heard so many great things about it. I'll make my way there one day. And if I do, I'm gonna I'm gonna call you and see if we can
Yes.
meet up.
Yes, please. I would love to show you around, and come in September or October if leaf peeping is your thing. It's a beautiful time of year.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us here and sharing your tips, your perspectives, and just having this fun but deep, meaningful, and valuable conversation with me. I so appreciate you. And I will catch you all back here next week. Thank you so much. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. I would so appreciate that. And if you love what I share here, then you're going to love and want to join my free private Facebook community that's also called Marriage and Motherhood. I hope to see and connect with you in there. Otherwise, I'll catch you back here next week for the next episode. Bye!